Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Nick and Michael back with you for Walk-Ins Welcome episode, whatever this is. But the good news is we're going to have a really good time. So say hi, Michael.
What's up?
And we also have Natalee with us today. Say hello, Natalee.
Hey, guys.
So I got to tell you a little bit about Natalee before we get started. She's kind of a stud, man. She's got a background that spans the United States, working with Fortune 500 companies. And then there was a stint there where you switched over to small businesses and helping them get their funding. Now, I know you got I know you're from Tennessee, you're a fellow Tennessean.
Oh, all
and
right.
I can't wait to hear where you're from. And then I know you like to coach, is it baseball with your daughter?
Basketball.
Basketball, yeah. Apologies. So I was close, Michael. So you like coaching your daughter's team. You guys like hiking, lots of families activities. But at the heart of it, it's helping medical facilities and small businesses get funding for their businesses. Say hello, Natalee, and tell us one thing about you that nobody else knows.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. Great to be here today. So something that not a lot of people know about me is that we have a family farm.
Oh,
and,
cool.
Yeah, we raise pigs.
Oh, how many pigs you got?
So we have about 20 right now. We've
Ooh.
got some little babies. So if anybody needs to come by and visit and be able to pet some pigs, then that's a really fun, exciting thing.
There was a really funny video that I saw one time, Natalee.
Oh,
it was a newscast, and it was this guy trying to talk about a pig that didn't have back legs, and the name of it was Chris P. Bacon. That was the name of the pig.
Wait, do you have any funny names for your pigs?
That's the best name ever.
One of them's name's Hammy. So,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
I like Hammy.
Sometimes we call the baby ones bacon bits. So
Bacon bits. There you go.
What? That's
I mean-
bad.
we love them as pets because they're actually mini pigs. But you know, I still like bacon, so there's that.
Well, now, did you grow up in a farm in Tennessee?
No, not at all. So this is all new, and we educated ourselves on how to do it, and here we are.
That's cool.
Well, now I need a little backstory here. You can't just go.
Was this a COVID farm?
Yeah, I mean,
Or
tell
was
me,
it-
how in the world did you get into pig farming?
Yeah, so these are pet pigs. So
Okay.
we wanted
Pets.
to move into bigger farming, you know, with cows, dairy cows, even those cute little miniature cows. And we were like, okay, what is pretty idiot proof that maybe we can't mess up on? And it was these miniature pigs. They're actually amazing. You can train them. You can litter train them. People keep them inside. We do not. But it's a really fun adventure, and we didn't really mess up. So we're pretty proud of ourselves. So now we can expand from there.
Nice.
10 baby pigs later, and here we are. What part of Tennessee are you originally from?
So right outside of Chattanooga.
Okay,
Okay,
gotcha.
cool.
I'm originally from Memphis, but I went to school at University of Tennessee, so I've got a lot of roots in Knoxville as well. So,
Okay,
well,
yeah.
welcome, fellow Tennessean. Let's talk all about J Galt. J Galt is the name of your company. You guys provide small business funding, and more importantly, you have a 7-step process that you guys go through to help people, what it sounds like, secure funding without personal guarantees. Help me understand that.
Yeah, thanks for that great question. So what we do is we help clinics to be able to really, even once they've started already, to be able to access the funding that they need separate, like in a silo from their personal assets. Because what a lot of people typically do is they'll just sign personal guarantees, or they'll use their personal credit cards because that's what they have to do to grow the business. And they haven't generated a lot of income yet, and their EIN is not very old because they've just opened their clinic. And so healthcare is actually a high risk NAICS code, which is the code that tells you what category your EIN is in. So that gives them, it makes it even harder right out of the gate. So we want to be able to help you build that robust EIN to help you do things like funding, separating your personal, but also it helps you to save money on like commercial insurance and different things like that.
So that's a lot to unpack. I think I want to start really with the separation of your personal finances from your business finances.
Okay.
Especially being a new clinic or a startup or somebody that just wants to get their clinic rolling. One, what is the importance of separating the two? And then two, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. So the importance is that, let's just use as an example, let's say you want to buy a house and you go to buy a house and you have a credit card that you've been using for the business that you use almost all of your available credit on it. You pay it off each month for your clinic, but it's attached to you specifically. Well, that impacts your debt to income ratio. And so maybe when you go to get a mortgage, you won't get approved for what you thought you were going to get approved because that's business expenses, but it's showing on your personal. So that's one example of how it can impact you. But the other reason is, what if you were to sell your business in the future? And then all of your personal and business is integrated together. How do you separate that? What do you know is debt on the business and debt on your personal? So it's really important to divide those two things so that you can create your business strength, have the right EBITDA that you need on your clinic, and potentially have an exit strategy into the future. So it's really critical for you to separate it so that you can do personal things on your personal and business things on your business.
I'm curious. So, I mean, obviously, so you're saying you deal with clinics that they've been around for a little bit, they're about to start. I mean, what tends to be the standard that you walk into and you're like, okay, we got to set some ground rules here. This doesn't look good. We need to make some adjustments. Like, what, I mean, a typical clinic that you walk into that needs some help, what do they typically end up looking like initially?
Yeah, so what I find is usually it's that 1 year clinic. They started out, they invested, they built their building or they got a building and they've had to buy all this equipment and they need to do marketing with you guys and they don't have any customers yet. And they're like, oh my goodness, we only have a few customers. We thought we were going to get more. So now we need to invest in more marketing. But I also need more people if I grow my business really quickly. And I used all my money to start up. So they're usually in that launch phase, about a year in. They've used, their savings. They've used some of their 401k. They've used their available cash that they have. And so then what they typically end up doing is going to their personal cards. So that's usually the scenario that we find folks in. And we have two different lanes of things that we are able to help them with. We do have some immediate financing available to bridge that gap. So maybe they can invest in a marketing program, a more robust marketing program to bring those customers in quickly. That's our JGalt Capital arm. And then we also have this one, which is more of a long-term investment where the separation happens so that you can build that EIN profile long-term, but for good.
Yeah. And we know personally, like building EIN credit is difficult.
It's a slow, painful process unless you have 7 steps involved.
Yeah. and like from our own experience, like talking about personal guarantees and things like that, like we're in a new office space. It was a challenge to find an office space that wasn't like demanding a personal guarantee or whatever. Like there's layers to that.
Because I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, right. And then on the EIN side, like we've done things to build our EIN credit side of things, but it is not like black and white, like it's a personal credit line type of thing. Like it is so vague, and nobody, like every time we would interact, oh yeah, build your credit, and we go like, hey, you've had one instance. I'm like, how? Like, what is this?
Yeah, and you know what? You are not alone in that. It's crazy. It's like a formula that nobody knows the formula of. It's like a mystery out there, right?
Oh yeah,
sounds like SEO, Michael.
That's right. You mentioned this, and this is a great point, that you thought you were building it and then you had one instant. So I'm going to give you a little bit on the consumer credit versus the business credit. On the consumer credit side, when you turn 18, the first time you try to get a credit card, it instantly reports and you start building from there. You have your payment history and all of those things. Everything auto reports, and it's required to auto report. On the business side, I'm going to blow your mind here. Only 7% of businesses have to report to the credit bureaus because it's not required. So you could have, a great credit card that you're using. Yeah. You're like, I pay all this. I have all these on-time payments, but they're not one that reports to the credit bureaus. Doesn't really matter if you made all those on-time payments according to your business credit. So that's why you've experienced that, and that's why it takes most people 5 to 7 years to do it on their own.
So I got this is personal, but I think it'll really help everybody because I really don't have an answer to this.
Okay.
Typically when I ask a question, I kind of know where I'm going with it. This one may be a very 2-second answer or a long one.
That's why Natalie's on the phone.
Right, so
are you ready?
You're talking about building your business credit. 100% of the time my mind goes to Dun & Bradstreet. Tell me if that's the same thing, if it's different, if they're together? Like, is this the difference between Experian and all? Help me understand business credit, because I think everybody grasps personal, but business totally different animal.
Yeah.
Dun & Bradstreet. Let's start with that.
You get a gold star for sure, because Dun & Bradstreet is one of the credit bureaus that reports for business credit. There are actually three. There are Dun & Bradstreet, there's Experian for business, and Equifax for business. Different than
Okay, so Dun & Bradstreet's kind of the weirdo, because we've heard of the other two.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a business one, so it's just slightly different. And then there's Credit Safe is coming onto the scene now. They're not quite considered that fourth one, but they're coming on the scene. So yeah, Dun & Bradstreet is the biggest one, but actually, Nick, that a lot of people aren't even registered with Dun & Bradstreet. So if they don't register their clinic with Dun & Bradstreet, then they're certainly not getting any registered credit history according to them. And you may go into a couple different, let's say you go for an SBA loan at the bank, and that bank uses Experian for business, but you've been working on your credit under Dun & Bradstreet, then it's going to show 0 under Experian for business. You may have a great score under Dun & Bradstreet.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you because I don't want people to have to rewind that. And what you just said is massive. Say that one more time slowly for those in the back.
Okay, so there's 3 different credit bureaus, and if you've been only working on one of those scores, it doesn't cross. So then if you go into a location to get your loan, if they only use one of those to run your business credit, then you may have a 0 score versus the score that you thought you had at Dun & Bradstreet if they use Dun & Bradstreet. So your score is actually only 0 to 100 on the business rental side.
Oh, that's cool. Didn't know that. That's so much easier. Why can't we do that for personal?
Yeah, exactly. So really an 80 score is kind of what you're targeting. That's an equivalent to around a 720, 750 on the personal side. Okay. And that's really going to be where all of the opportunity opens for you to be able to access different types of fundings of your choice.
I'm over here taking notes because I had no idea. No, that's fantastic. All right. So I guess the bigger question then comes in, okay, I know I need to establish my business credit.
Right.
I know I need to separate my personal from my business. And then there's 3 different avenues.
Bureaus or whatever.
Bureaus,
whatever
however you want to call it.
Yeah, bureaus, exactly.
How do you manage the 3 and know which one to pour into? Or what is that all about?
Yeah, so the answer is you have to do all 3.
Okay.
That's the only way.
I have all the time in the world for that.
As a small business owner and a clinician, you've got plenty of time to do that, right?
Right.
So that's where we come in, and that's what our service is to help, is we've really got the back end perfected. So one of our steps, you mentioned our 7 steps. Our first step really is administrative. This is surprising out there, but you've probably created an LLC or a C Corp, and then you also have your EIN registration. Sometimes those don't match, where maybe you have an abbreviation for your LLC, but it had periods in the LLC, but it didn't have periods in the actual registration. That is an automatic denial for funding because it's a potential fraudulent flag. So things like that, we help you to look at. There's 125 different points of that administratively that these bureaus look at to make sure you're a legitimate company. A couple of other ones are having a website, having a landline, having your number in 411. Who even knew that people still used 411? There's probably people listening to this that don't even know what 411 even is.
I mean, I know what it is, but we're a marketing agency, and I've never put anybody in 411.
Because that's the info number, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's required.
What?
And if you don't have it, you could likely not get approved. So we help you with that because you're super busy. And so we have a white glove service that will help you to be able to do that. And then as you move on from there, we have partnerships with with different organizations that report to each of the bureaus, so that we make sure as we're working with you, we're partnering with companies that you will use as a clinic, as well as ones that report to all 3 bureaus. Because if you don't report to all 3 bureaus, it doesn't work.
So some of those partners you're talking about, what's an example of one? You don't have to give a name, but what kind of industry it falls into.
I'll take a name.
Yeah, so...
I mean, you can give names. I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, so a Uline, I feel like everybody can use that.
Okay.
The instant you register for a LLC or an EIN or a C Corp, you get that thick book, right, with all the amazing things that Uline offers. So that's just one example of a company, but there's a plethora of different companies out there that do report. And there's two things that we ask of them when they partner with us. One, that they report to the credit bureaus, and two, that they provide us with the requirements for approval. So we're shortcutting all of the difficulty where you're like, which credit card should I use? Am I going to get approved? So that we partner with them to be able to do this so that it makes your process a lot easier. And we're utilizing the organizations that make sense for your business as well.
So it's fascinating because, like, you mentioned like Uline. So, like, I think we've all heard or seen Uline. We get the little, well, not little, fat magazine that shows up in our door.
Yeah.
Now I know
It's like it reminds me of the old Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing, you could hurt somebody with
Yeah,
that.
you can like knock somebody out, or it's a good doorstop, that too. But no, it's fascinating because now you have like this criteria. Okay, I like this vendor because they're really great on price. Now you can ask the question: do you report to the bureaus for business credit? No. What do you mean? Great, I'm going somewhere else because
You're not the one for me.
Because if you're trying to build credit, because here's the thing. We know this, like if a clinic wants to open another location, that means they've exploded on their patient volume, they're tapped out. And that, because we have this all the time, we have lots of clients that had one location, we maxed them out, and the only option is to open another location. Well, that's like $2 to $3 million minimum, and they don't want to burn their cash to make that happen. They rather get a loan around it. And at that point, they don't want $2 million a guarantee on their personal credit. Like, they don't need that, right? And so like that's that mindset, because we know like when you're a clinic, an urgent care clinic, you're doing 30, 40 patients a day, you're burning through materials. You have lots of vendors in place. You might as well get the ones that build your credit. That's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that's a great point actually, because we do have a lot of businesses that want to do this for acquisition purposes. So you could think of that next location or expansion too, in terms of acquisition as well. So being able to have a credit line that is available to you when you need it, and it could be for a downturn or it could be for an expansion. So it's just knowing that the security of having that available to you. I actually worked with another business that they used their money for an acquisition, and then another opportunity for an acquisition came up that they weren't expecting, and they were so excited that they were able to access an additional credit line that they had sitting there already to be able to take on this second acquisition that they weren't expecting, because they had done the work ahead of time. Because it's about a 12-month process for you to be able to work through and have the robust profile that you need on your EIN. So it's an investment that you have to make so that when the time comes when you need it, you're able to access it.
So from my experience, which isn't extensive, when you're not taking a personal guarantee on a business loan, the risk is being passed on. And that is either passed on in cost or that is passed on in collateral. How does that work whenever you're removing your personal assets? You can't touch my home, my kids, my car. You can't touch my bank accounts. The business has access. How does that work when you're establishing credit and lending without that personal guarantee?
So the business essentially is the collateral, right? The success of the business is what the collateral is. And Nick, that's actually the purpose in creating an LLC or a corporation, is creating that corporate veil. And so when you sign those personal guarantees, you're piercing the corporate veil and you're exposing all of those things that you just said, your family, your house, your car, and all of those things. So when you think about it in the opposite scenario, why would you do a personal guarantee? Because the whole purpose of you creating that different organization was to protect it. So that's what we're using the business as collateral. And how do they look at credit? Think about it on the consumer side. They look at it based on your history of payments and how much money you're making. It's the same thing on the business side. They're looking at how much revenue total that the business is bringing in, and they can see that by your historical payments and assume that that's the cash flow that you have within your business to be able to make those payments. But if you're making all of those payments and none of them are reporting, it looks like you're a baby business. instead of the size business that you are. And that's the biggest difference. That's why you need to make sure that you have things that are registering on there so that you can use your business as that collateral.
So let's talk to our brand new startups.
Okay.
Okay. So we can talk to the existing ones that have established clinics that want to grow to the next level. We'll talk about them in a minute. But our startup clinic, we've had several people outreach to us, reach out, is the right word, reach out to us and ask us, hey, can you help us start our urgent care? Obviously, they haven't started it. It's one thing to have an established business with history, revenue, cash flow, profit. Something entirely different when you have none of those things. You haven't even opened up your door yet, and you have to establish a business credit. What are you capable of doing, and in what time frame to help people start their own company?
Yeah, so our JGalt Capital arm allows you to do non-traditional lending. So then when you don't have your business set up already, then we are able to ask some questions. And in this case, we do use your personal social to be able to start that because you don't have any history of your business. So what we do is we get you started on that, and then we work with you to move it off of your personal and into your business as you end up building that EIN. Unfortunately, when you go in for an SBA loan, they won't even look at you. And I think that's probably a lot of the difficulty that we've seen as callers have called in to walk-ins, and that they just don't even know where to go because they go to the bank and they get denied, and they go to try to get a personal loan and they get denied because there's just no options. So we are very supportive of that startup, and that's one of the reasons actually that we started this arm of our business, the JGalt Capital, to be able to work with these startups to get them that initial funding that they need.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now I have this selfish question. How can we be a vendor that reports to 3 bureaus and become like a separating piece?
You just asked a really good question. Can a company become a reporting agent?
Meaning, can they, if someone pays them, they're a vendor that reports?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so our clients pay us a retainer fee, and if it would do them a favor for us to report that they're paying on time, like what is that?
You may not have an answer to that. I don't know.
That's totally different than probably what you're here for sure. I'm just curious.
It threw in my mind, I was like, selling point.
Here's what I'll do.
You
I'll say
absolutely
that's a
can.
yes or no. Can you not? And then we'll move on.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
A
so
lot
yes, you
of
can.
companies don't do it because it's not required, and it can get expensive from a time standpoint for them to have to report those. But you can.
Okay, that's an interesting thought. For another episode, for another time, we'll talk about that.
I'm gonna be offline there.
How to do that? I'm gonna have to dig in a little bit on that one.
Let's tie this up and put a bow on it. Here's what I want to do. I know you have 7 steps,
Yeah.
and that may not be for this episode. You can share what you want on that. More importantly, what I want to do is for the person who doesn't know if they need you or not, what are things that they need to look for? Like, what do you need to do on your own? For example, personally, I can go pull my own Experian report, and that will let me know if I need help with my credit. What do we do for business? What do we do for that urgent care?
So you can actually pull a business credit report and see where you stand today, if at all. That's something that I can do for you if you guys are interested in just talking through. I can provide for listeners here today a free credit report for your business. But it doesn't ding you.
That's huge.
Yeah. It doesn't ding you like consumer credit. That's the fear that all the business owners have.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Is they're like, oh no, it's going to affect my credit. My points are going to go down. That's true on the consumer side, not true on the business credit side. So we're able to do that for you and just take a look at it. You only need your address and your LLC name or corporate name, how it's listed in the Secretary of State.
So that's step number 1 that they could do before they wanted to have a conversation with you, or maybe they need to have a conversation with you. Is this something they can do on your website? How does that work?
Yeah, so they could just reach out to me directly, and then with that information, the name of their LLC and their address, and then I could pull it, and then we could have a conversation about what it means on there and look at it there.
Okay, we'll make sure that we get your contact information in the show notes so that anybody that would want to reach out to you can just click away, and then boom, y'all are pulling credit reports. I love it. All right, so step 1 would be to pull a credit report. What is another thing that they could do to get started in this?
Yeah, so I would say just check your registrations and make sure that those match. Make sure that you have a valid email address. It can't be NataliePerkins@gmail. It needs to be Natalee@nameofmybusiness.com.
Branded emails.
That's so fast because so we're working with a new urgent care that's about to kick off. I'm going to guess his funding's in place because he already has a building and he has all the equipment. He's just making hires and starts in February. But he had said when he was doing his insurance credentialing, he's like, I need a website now because they won't, if it's not there, they're not going to look at me. And so we spun up a landing page for him just to get it going.
Right.
Just to help him, honestly. It was before he was in a client. I was like, yeah, I'll spin up a landing page. I don't care. And so it's so fascinating. Like, even these guys, like, we want to see a branded email, a website, like all these things. Like, obviously, most companies should have this, but it's so fascinating. Like, it's just a straight up requirement, not so much this is nice to have. Like, you have to have this now.
Yeah, it just creates legitimacy around you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. So, and that's what the credit bureaus want to see, is they want to see legitimacy in your business, that you're serious about this, that when they're taking the risk for funding, that you are taking the risk to grow the business and to be successful. So yeah, those are some of the ways that they can get started. Just make sure everything on the back end is organized and that you have legitimacy surrounding that so you look fundable. And then the other thing is, think about your future. What is your plan? What is your plan for growth? And if you see expansion in terms of additional clinics, then you need to be thinking about building this so that when you're ready to expand, you have the funding that you need to be able to do that without using your own personal assets. So those are the three things that I would say.
Well, and we know too, we have a couple of clients that when they expand, they don't build a location, they buy, another urgent care that had 2 or 3 locations.
Or a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah. we have a client right now that just opened a new location that used to be a Mexican restaurant. So, like, when you do the Google Street View, it's just a closed down Mexican restaurant. And so, like, sorry, we can't actually get that to update. That's Google's thing.
They give tequila shots and vaccine shots.
Yeah, all in one shot. And but no, and then we have another one that he's like, I might be buying 10 locations in 2024. Cool. Like, we love that, but at the same time, that's not a small bill. It's like, that's a lot of cash.
That's capital.
That's millions of dollars.
They're not calling that money. They're calling that capital. That's
Yeah.
a totally different thought process.
Well, and that brings up a good point, actually, since you said that, is that, having business credit isn't just for funding. It's also to ensure that you can get the best rates and terms. So when you're signing a lease, you can get better terms if you have better business credit. When you're buying a building and you need the loan for the building, you can get better terms if you have business credit. When you're getting commercial insurance for that building that you're buying, if you have business credit, you'll be able to get better pricing. Again, the legitimacy of your business, the lower risk, the reduced liability because of the history that you have created there. So that's for another episode, but
Yeah.
So this, I think, will be your ultimate value proposition, Natalee. So in the marketing world, there's not really anything that we do that our clients can't do on their own. They can run their own Google ads. They can do their SEO. They can write their own content. And they can post their own social media. But they are better served by serving their patients. And so we step in and do it because we have learned how to do it. We know where to go. We know where to put it. We know what to write. We know what the search engines are looking for, essentially. With the same thought process going into building your business credit, I expect there's probably a lot of stuff that they could probably do on their own. But what's the time constraint? The time it takes to get this done and to done right, and the opportunity cost of doing it wrong. That, I think, is where the value is. Is that about right?
yeah, that's absolutely right. There's a lot of details. We talked about the 125 points that they're looking for. We talked about which ones report, which ones do not. We talked about making sure you cover all 3 credit bureaus when you're utilizing the companies that you're doing business with. And that takes a ton of time away from what you're really good at. So let us provide you with an analyst that works alongside you or the person that you assign to do the work for you. It's a white glove service program so that when you want to expand and do even more of what you're doing an amazing job of, then you're ready and you can take that next step without trepidation of where that money's going to come from.
And that all starts with a free pull of your business credit when you reach out with Natalee at J Galt. That's how you get everything going. That's how you start building your business credit. It starts for free and it builds on top of that based on your needs.
Such a good marketing pitch.
I love it. Natalee, I've had a good time meeting with you today. I appreciate you coming on to our podcast,
Yeah.
even with all our little fun trying to get it started issues right before the call.
Oh yeah, for those
Thanks for hanging in with us.
for the behind the scenes, we would have started this podcast 10, 15 minutes earlier, but our software is like, no, you're not recording today. And so we had to dance around, but now it was a good sport about the whole thing. And so we're so thankful that you came on today. I mean, you can tell like with Nick's question, like we need to know this,
Yeah,
like
this
type
is
of stuff.
information I'd
This
like
is
to
good
talk
to
more
know.
about.
Yeah,
So
thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. You guys are a blast. So appreciate
good,
you.
good.
Appreciate the invite.
Well, all right, guys. So if you want to reach out to Natalee, we'll have stuff in the show notes. Also, you can find her on LinkedIn. And it's Natalee, not the way you think it's spelled. Natalee Perkins.
That's right.
Because everybody wants to do like an IE or something. So thank you again, Natalee. Be safe with this weather that we're having today. It's nice and rainy. But we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys.